Welcome back to South by Southwest Live. I'm your host, Douglas Caballero, and with me today in the studio are Amber Ruffin and Jenny Hagel, two very funny writers on NBC's Late Night with Seth Myers. From Amber's Minute of Fury to Jokes Seth Can't Tell, these two breakout stars are getting noticed for their distinct and refreshing voices in late night comedy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for that nice introduction.
Yay!
Yes, well, someone else wrote it, so.
Oh, okay.
I didn't write that.
Our moms wrote it.
No,
These
honestly,
are two
though.
really cute sweethearts who love to share.
One of them single. Please take her off the market.
But we're not going to tell you which
So
one.
lose a little weight. Please welcome.
Oh man, your parents actually really were sweet when they wrote those entries for us. Jokes that Seth Can't Tell has become a regular segment on the show, and I think it's interesting, just the fact that it's called You Can't Tell It. What is the origin of that segment?
Well, we both write occasionally monologue jokes for the show, and at one point when I first started writing for the show, I turned in a bunch of monologue jokes. There was like some news headline that was about lesbians, and I was like, because I'm gay, and so I wrote a bunch of jokes about it, and I turned them into my boss, and then I saw him in the hallway later, and I was like, hey, let me know if you need more lesbian jokes. And he goes, we can't use them. And I just hadn't thought about the fact that like Seth can't go and rip into lesbians. Because I was new to the job and didn't understand the parameters. And so then later I went to Amber and I was like, what if we did a segment where we wrote a bunch of jokes that only, like that Seth can't get away with, but then they don't get wasted.
Right.
Because we both had him sitting around.
And then was it like difficult to pitch that to the team?
We wrote it up and read it at a sketch read, and I thought, well, there's nothing wrong with just trying it. I certainly didn't think we had
Oh, no. Once we read it aloud, immediately in my head, I was like, well, that was fun for 2 minutes, but we'll certainly never see that again.
Yeah.
And then we got an email like a couple days later that was like, hey, write that up and bring it to a meeting and let's try it.
Yeah.
So that's how writers' rooms work nowadays? Like someone doesn't just knock on your door and go, hey, good one? You got a memo?
No, I'm sure every show is different. Yeah, we do a table read every Thursday, which is really fun. So everybody, if they want to, can turn in a sketch every Wednesday by 6:30, and then Thursday morning, it's a little bit like Comedy Christmas. We come in every Thursday at a morning, and we go into a conference room, and there's a big stack of sketches at each of our seats, and then we just get to see what weird fun thing our friends turned in.
That's really exciting. I mean, I have to imagine that a lot of people don't realize for late night shows, SNL, other sketch shows that are on television, how much goes into stuff that will never be seen. Mm-hmm. Does that hurt? And are there ever moments when you're like, how did they not accept this idea? This rejection, it hurts my heart.
I think we are now long past this rejection hurts my heart.
Yeah.
Because we pitch so many things and we write so many things. The percentage of the stuff we generate that they actually use might be like 2%. We do a lot of work.
Sure.
Because you never know what's going to stick. So when someone takes our baby and throws it in the trash, we don't care.
Yeah. Well, rejection's part of the entertainment business as well. As a performer, writer, you're no, thanks, no.
Yeah. Well, I think too, and I think what I like when you're working with professional writers, it's less about is this good or bad, and so then I think your personal value is not attached to it. It's not am I good or bad, is this good or bad? It's just does this work?
Yeah.
Which sounds like a tiny semantic difference, but I think it means it's all the difference in the world.
No,
Because
you're
you can look at a
being
sketch.
very clinical about it.
Yeah, it's not a value judgment on you or your writing. It's just okay. I wrote this sketch. Does this work? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's I see what you're trying to say. This doesn't work. What if we move this here and cut this and put this in? Now does it work? And sometimes it's just I see what you're trying to say. I don't think it's workable. Mm-hmm. To say this in a funny way.
Sure.
So let's try something else.
So speaking of failure in that writer's room for Late Night with Seth, what have the two of you learned in regards to some of the failures along your creative career path? For example, I'd love to hear the quick backstory about how you didn't get onto the show that you wanted to get onto, but now you're here.
Oh yeah.
What did you learn from that?
Let's hear about that.
I got Late Night with Seth Myers because I auditioned for SNL. And I thought for sure I was going to get it. You couldn't have told me I wasn't going to get it. I swear to goodness, I'm terribly cocky. Well, I was, and that took care of it. But then 3 days later, after I found out that I did not get it, Seth called me and I thought he was calling me to say, "Oh man, I'm sorry, you didn't get SNL." And I thought, "Oh, what a sweet thing." And I kept saying, "You didn't have to call. You didn't have to call, man." And he was like, "No, I need you to move to New York and write on my show. Do you want to do that?"
You were living
And I
in
was like,
Omaha.
Yes. No, I was living in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But we used to do a theater called Boom Chicago in Amsterdam. Seth is an alum of that theater, so he used to come visit, so he kind of knew who I was. And then that's how I got the SNL audition. And the SNL audition is how I got Late Night Seth. Blah, 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 blah.
And so is cockiness something that you've like learned to
Cockiness, if you're a performer, you got to be cocky.
Okay.
I don't think you're never going to be looking up on stage and seeing someone who is not cocky in some respect.
Yeah.
So
But
so no,
yes.
let's spotlight's on you.
Oh,
and,
geez.
So from your failures, because you've been writing, prior to Seth, you wrote for a bunch of pop culture humor shows in New York.
Yeah.
Were there things that your takeaways from that experience that you've now applied to Seth as far as failures go?
Yeah, I think my biggest lesson in failure, or that I've taken from failure career-wise, is that I feel like I've had so many little jobs and I've applied for so many jobs. And early on, I think you feel like when you're applying for a job, like this is the only job that will make me happy. This is the perfect job. Yeah. This is the job that's going to change my life. And I think the really nice lesson in all the, because before I got hired to Late Night with Seth Myers, I submitted 30 packets for other late night shows over the course of 7 years.
Wow.
So I got rejected 30 times. But I think each time I was like, this is the thing that's going to make my life worth living.
Yeah.
And then I would not get that job, but I'd get some other job that maybe seemed imperfect, and I'd be like, okay, I'll take this job. But at that job, I'd learn some new skill that I didn't already have. I'd make some cool friend that like had nothing to do career-wise, but I made some cool friend that like I hadn't met before. And for each of those jobs, I took something really important. And I think it was a nice lesson that like success and failure isn't like a zero-sum game. It isn't just like I'm either successful or I'm a garbage human. It was like, oh, there's like all these different tiny steps, and there's different ways to, like, this job had a really nice quality of life. This job sucked, but it was a nice paycheck. You know what I mean? Like, this job had a nice boss. This job had a nice coworker. This job mostly was garbage, but I did this one segment I'm really proud of, and I still think about 4 years later. So I think it was a really nice lesson in, like, success looks like a lot of different things, and success happens incrementally. And ultimately, I really love the job I have now, so I'm happy that I got rejected from the 30 others.
Nuance. There's some nuance in the middle there.
Yeah, thank you.
Jokes about things that are hard to talk about. Why are jokes so effective when in sort of creating that conversation about touchy things, political things, social things?
Those jokes are successful because they are a joke about something that is bothering you. You know, it's like when something bad happens, you know, in your family, and then you guys finally get to the point where you can be like, ugh, today would be great if we didn't have that dead-ass dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, it's like that, except for how our nation is a toilet.
I think jokes are the most successful when they have a point of view.
Sure.
And so when something is really tough and contentious, and you, like Amber said, you have a lot of feelings about it, you have a strong reaction to it, then you've got a point of view. Mm-hmm. And so those are, I think, always the best jokes, or when you have something that you're trying to say. But also the joke is the sugar that helps the medicine go down. Like if you have a thing that's really tough to talk about, doing it through humor, having a parallel track where you're making a point you want to make that's serious, but also jokes are sprinkled in, makes it palatable and makes it a little easier to talk about tough things.
It just occurred to me that you are working for the face of the show, the performer, who's also was the head writer on Saturday Night Live for a very long time. So he is a very serious writer. Has that been different for you over compared to other writing jobs you've had? Working for someone who may be a writer first before he's,
yes.
you know.
I've never had that experience at other TV shows, and it's the best because he can look at it, and he has so much more experience than I do that I can bring in a sketch, and I've gotten it to the best, to the point that the best point that I can get it to, and to bring it to somebody who has more experience and who can be like, I see what you're doing here, move this here, cut this, now it's tighter, is a delight. Because I think also too, like a really good writer, a head writer, a really good editor, doesn't try to make your sketch more like their sketch, they try to help you make your sketch more you.
Yeah.
So even if I'm writing something, like I wrote a piece about, Trump said some really, I'm Puerto Rican, and Trump said some really messed up things about Puerto Ricans around the time of the hurricane, and I brought in this piece about it. And Seth isn't Puerto Rican, but he was able to look at it, hear what I was trying to say, and clear out some of the verbal clutter that was getting in the way of my point and helped me reorganize it so that they weren't his feelings, they were my feelings, but he helped me say my feelings better.
Sure.
And it's really a gift I think a lot of people don't have. It's a real blessing
It's
to
like
work
the
for
Max
him.
Martin music producer of jokes.
We often call him that.
This is actually what you just said is a really good segue. I have a quote here. You've said, it's a scary time to be a minority in America right now. How did the election change what the both of you chose to write about?
You know, it's important to not feel insane. And a thing that can help that is me just going, okay, the president said this, and that's insane, and it's unacceptable. Because, yeah, we're in New York, and it's just nothing but us and people like us. So, you know, there are some people in the middle of America going, well, I mean, Tony says Trump is a good guy. Fuck, I don't know.
Maybe he is.
Yeah. So it helps you not to be insane. When you without a joke just go, hey, that is not okay, and that's not a normal thing. That this is not normal. It helps.
It's therapy.
It's therapeutic.
I think for me it really changed what I pitch because I think things are just heavier. There's more important things happening in the country. I think before the election, I mean, not that there isn't space and room for like silly jokes. There always is space for that in life. But I just think like I just have bigger fish to fry emotionally now. And so I think like I just think that before I would have brought in a mix of political things, but also like here's a piece called Funny Airbnb Posts. And I think now I just have less space in my heart for that. I think I tend to bring in things that like, hey, this is a thing that happened. This affects real people. This gives me real feelings. Like that thing that he said, like when he's like saying crazy stuff about Puerto Ricans, or when like I'm also, like I said, I'm gay, and if he's like, if Mike Pence is out there saying crazy stuff about gay people, I feel like that feels important to me, and it feels more important to me to write about that and try to make jokes about that and people remind people that that's damaging than it does to be like, here's 12 different hats on a bee.
Sure. Do you feel a responsibility to some degree? No?
Oh, that's tricky. That's a tricky spot. I mean, not really, because I'm gonna do what I want no matter what. But it does. It just feels so good to do it. Yeah. It's not that you feel like you must. It's that you have to. Yeah. Does that make sense? That's a crazy way to say that. But you know
it's a compulsion.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like reading the room. I think it's like, it's not that I can't write a thing about 12 different hats on a bee.
My God, you got to write that up, man.
It's just that.
I want to see it.
It's just that that's not it doesn't feel like the tone if America is a room, that doesn't feel like the tone in the room to me right now.
Yeah,
Does that make
you're
sense?
DJing the ultimate wedding. You have to read the room.
You got to read the room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's exact. So for me, it's just more like what feels like appropriate for the room right now.
Well, I feel like the two of you would actually be really good at giving advice to other writers do you have other writers that are coming to you who are younger, sort of looking for advice? And if so, like, what do you tell them?
Every once in a while. I always tell writers who want to get paid that they need to have a large body of work that they can point at and say, I'm a good writer. You don't have to take my word for it. Oh, what's that, Reading Rainbow? But they can point to this bunch of work, all these videos, all these packets, all these scripts, all these pilots, and people will have concrete proof that they are great, because that's what you have to have.
Right. And I think too about like figuring out like, who are you, what do you want to say, and say it, and what's the best way to just practice saying it over and over again till the way that you say it gets crisper and more concise and more skilled.
I hear that you might be running for president.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Great. I'm going to run for president the day after. Never. Oh my gosh. How terrible would that be? Can you imagine running for president? Oh my God, the things people would be able to dig up. Mm-hmm. Ooh, Lord, help us.
So that's a good segue into what we, through the lens of two smart writers and comedians, what do you expect in 2020 when it comes to the political landscape? Could be just your prediction for who might win.
I don't know. Trump might win again, man. We're braced for it.
Yeah, you won't catch me unprepared twice.
Yeah. I don't expect anyone to have an answer at this point. I think it's, in my personal opinion, it's so unpredictable. But
I don't know I don't know what to expect. I can tell you what I hope, and I think what I hope is that America will go through this election, this second time, with having learned some lessons from the first time. Like I hope that we will listen to the content of what a candidate is saying instead of how flashy they seem. Or what, and I hope that the media will cover people responsibly and ethically instead of falling prey to covering and putting people in stereotypical boxes. And I hope that people will vote with compassion for groups of people who they might not be a part of. So those are my hopes. Are we as Americans that emotionally mature, or are we still in our emotional national puberty where we haven't really fully reached emotional adulthood? We'll find out very shortly, but I think those are my hopes, having had to look, because of our work, with such a close lens at every single news item of the last election. I hope we can do it better this time.
Where you are recording a podcast later today. Tell me about that.
It's called Late Night Trash Can.
Late Night Trash Can.
And basically, like what Amber was saying before, like we have to pitch so many things and write so many things for work. A very tiny percentage of it gets used. So we thought it'd be fun to celebrate some of the things that we wrote that were rejected.
Yeah.
So we're gonna read a bunch of things we wrote that were rejected. We're gonna show a video. I'm gonna show a video of a piece that I did. We do a rehearsal every day before our show in front of a live audience. We get a bunch of tourists from the NBC gift shop. And we were every day at 4:30. We rehearse a bunch of material in front of them, and we record those so that if you need to go back and look at it and take notes, you can. So I dug up an old recording of something that I wrote and performed in front of an audience, and it died. So we can all get together and watch it die. And we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what we learned and what we think about failure and why we think it's useful.
I love that the gift shop shoppers are the sample set for America.
Yeah. It is very interesting.
These they're keychain that's also a bottle opener, and you're like, you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of them we get a very international audience then for our rehearsal that may not be indicative of the kind of audience we'll get for our show that night. So it's funny to try to guess, like, okay, these people didn't laugh at that joke. Is it because that joke isn't funny, or because Australians don't know who Betsy DeVos is?
Yeah.
I mean, who is she?
Oh no.
I'm kidding.
He's Australian.
But this is going to be recorded to be a podcast, which will then, my understanding is, to come out on Monday on Late Night Seth's the website. You may not know that, but that's what I was told.
I trust you.
So
You have a
for those of you out
teleprompter,
there,
so I can't argue with you.
If you're a fan of Seth Myers and the show, go to the site and you'll be able to hear what they're going to do later today, which is very exciting. Amber, you have a TV series that you're developing.
You know what, man? We're just trying to write this pilot. NBC bought our show, and we're just trying to write a pilot and see if they pick it up. And maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Yeah, it's tough to talk about things where they haven't actually. And I don't trust them unless it's on the air. I don't trust it.
I know that's right. I'll trust it.
And so
8 episodes in.
do you feel comfortable talking about it? Explaining it a little bit?
Nah.
Nah?
I shouldn't.
Okay, I can appreciate that. Then I'm going to turn to your friend here.
Great.
What's next for you in addition to Seth?
You know what? I think I'm just super enjoying working at Late Night right now. I think I'm enjoying finding like all new different ways, avenues into handling the insane news cycle. I think it's been really a fun journey. I've been at the show 3 years now, and it's been a fun journey to find like different new ways for Amber and I to work together. I know. Well, we were friends for 10 years before I started working at Late Night. So we have a really long history as friends.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and so it's been really lovely then to have this new chapter of our friendship. And I feel like even in the 3 years that I've been there have been different chapters of like, okay, now like for the first year we worked together on this kind of piece. And then we kind of fell into, we've got a knack for writing this kind of piece. And then as we get sharper at figuring out each other's voices, like we've helped each other. Even if I have a piece where I'm totally the one on camera, you can guarantee that Amber was right there the whole time helping me write it, and vice versa. And so I think it's been fun to like zero in on each other's voices and think like, I think you have a feeling about this. Can I help you put it into words?
What happens now is something happens at 9:45, and we go, we should write something about it because it's due at 11. So then we sit down and go, then write it as fast as possible. And then, if it's in a little bit of shape by 11, then you have the rest of the day to do something, but oh boy, making that 11 o'clock cut is tough.
I love that some of the wisdom that you're imparting on younger writers, which I asked about earlier, is procrastination.
No, sometimes the news just breaks that early. There'll be sometimes where I'll be on the F train on the way in, and I'll get to work, and they'll be like, "Did you hear what Mike Pence just said?" I'll be like, "Oh no, now we got to write something."
That's 100% true. Are there comics? Or even up-and-coming writers that you think that we should be paying attention to? Because we're about to run out of time, but I look at you as mavens for some of this.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't know.
I think anybody you should pay extra attention to is anybody who is female or person of color. There, I said it. Because I think so long comedy's been dominated by one kind of voice, and that doesn't mean that a straight white guy can't be a great, thoughtful comedian, but I think the comedy landscape has been dominated for so long by one point of view that I think it's worth just giving extra attention to somebody who's bringing something new to the table that you haven't heard before. Maybe they'll be great and maybe they won't, but I think it's absolutely worth taking the time to find out.
Mm-hmm. Are there any out there, right, you can just point to really quickly that are already on
Jabuki
there?
Young White, Robin Thede, Lauren Ashley Smith, Shantira Jackson, Dwayne Perkins.
Okay.
Boom. I co-sign her list.
I appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I've laughed more than I did earlier today.
I'm glad to hear
I
it.
appreciate it. And we are unfortunately out of time. But for those of you watching a little later today, Amber and Ginny, if you're in Austin, we'll be doing a podcast where you'll hear a lot more of the jokes that they've written that have never made it to air until now. And that will also come out on NBC's website, I believe, on Monday. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And we'll be back streaming live at 3 p.m. Central Time today with futurist Amy Webb. Thanks for watching.